Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is the Good Game Podcast. I am your host, A1K, and this is episode 18 of the Good Game Podcast. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to today's episode. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that share button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We got a lot more episodes coming out in the future, and I don't want you to miss it. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Sports Illustrated has named Simone Biles 2024 Sportsperson of the Year. With 3 gold medals in Paris and a powerful return to form, Biles proved she's more than an athlete. Simone Biles has been named Sports Illustrated's 2024 Sportsperson of the Year, adding another accolade to her illustrious career. The announcement was made this last Thursday, celebrates a historic year for the 27-year-old gymnast, who solidified her legacy as one of the greatest athletes of all time with a stunning performance at the 2024 Paris Olympics. In Paris, Biles captured 4 medals, 3 gold in team, all-around, and floor exercise, and a silver in vault, bringing her total medal count to 11. Her victories tied her for the second most decorated female gymnast in Olympic history, an achievement made even more remarkable by her journey back from the struggles she faced in Tokyo in 2020, where she withdrew from several events due to the twisties, a disorienting condition that left her mind and body dangerously out of sync. The honor reflects not only her dominance in gymnastics, but also her resilience, advocacy, and ability to inspire. Biles will officially accept the award on January 7th at the annual Sports Illustrated Awards, hosted by Keegan-Michael Key at Wynn Las Vegas. The recognition marks a fitting close to a year where Biles reclaimed her throne in gymnastics and showed the world what it means to rise above adversity. So shout out to Simone Biles, definitely well deserved, one of the greatest athletes of all time, and I'm glad that she was able to get her recognition with this award. Shout out to Sports Illustrated for picking the right person to receive it, and we are definitely looking forward to seeing what this all-time, once-in-a-generation athlete has in store for her future. Definitely am a fan, gonna be paying attention like I'm sure a lot of you are. So once again, congratulations to Simone Biles. You deserve it, and job well done. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move quickly to our next topic of the day. But before we begin, I want to go ahead and remind you, if you haven't already, please do me a favor and hit that like button, hit that share button, share this video with a sports fan who may want to get this information on a regular basis. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any content that we drop on this channel in the future. I want to thank all of you who have done so already. And with that being said, let's get into our next topic of the day. So, Derrick Rose has been selected to have his number retired by the Chicago Bulls. Derrick Rose says Bulls tribute is celebrating everyone. Derrick Rose said he was still in a daze after hearing Saturday morning that the Chicago Bulls plan to retire his number 1 jersey and add it to the rafters next season. The news came hours before the Bulls were set to host Rose on Saturday night at the United Center during their game against the New York Knicks. Both teams wore shirts honoring Rose during pregame warmups with the date 1/4/25. All 3 numbers Rose wore during his career. And the team unveiled the Derrick Rose Atrium Experience to spotlight unique memorabilia from his career. Though Rose said he was looking forward to the jersey ceremony next season, he admitted he couldn't process those emotions with the impending celebration this weekend. Tonight is not about that, Rose said before the game. It's about me giving everybody that's in this room, everybody that was a part of the story, the journey, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's celebrating everyone. The team hosted a tribute ceremony to Rose during halftime with remarks from broadcasters Stacey King and Neil Funk, and former teammate Joakim Noah, who led a sold-out crowd into a chant of MVP, MVP. The ceremony also included a tribute video to Rose highlighting his career and the debut of a short film produced by the former Bulls star called Becoming a Rose, as a salute to the city of Chicago. "Thank you, Chicago, for forcing me to be great," Rose said during his halftime remarks, "for putting those expectations on me." The Bulls will go on to outscore the Knicks by 24 points in the third quarter after trailing by 9 at halftime en route to a 139-126 victory on Rose's special night. Rose, a Chicago native, played 8 seasons with the Bulls and became the youngest MVP in NBA history. He will be the 5th player to have his jersey retired in franchise history, joining Jerry Sloan, number 4, Bob Love, number 10, Michael Jordan, number 23, and Scottie Pippen, 33. The Bulls also have banners that honor former coach Phil Jackson and former general manager Jerry Krause. No player has worn Rose's jersey number while playing in the game since he was traded to the Knicks in 2016. Chicago briefly issued the number to Michael Carter-Williams and Anthony Morrow, but both switched to a different number after fan backlash. After his time with the Bulls, Rose played with the Knicks, Detroit Pistons, Minnesota Timberwolves, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Memphis Grizzlies during his 15-year career. Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau, who coached Rose in Chicago, Minnesota, and New York, said he thought there was no question Rose was a Hall of Fame player. In the days leading up to the Saturday ceremony, fans celebrated Rose as the Bulls and his representatives with Adidas unveiled a list of community events. He opened a pop-up flower shop for one day in Chicago, which drew hundreds of fans who lined up outside in the middle of winter to wait for their bouquet and photo Chicago. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson declared Saturday as Derrick Rose Day in the city. Rose hosted a charity basketball game at his high school alma mater and took the court with his son PJ. Then on Saturday, fans lined up outside the United Center more than an hour before gates opened in anticipation of the evening. "You're not only the MVP," Noah said during his halftime speech, "you're the people's champ." Thibodeau added, "He's probably the most beloved player in the league." Although Rose still has a strong connection to his hometown city, he says Saturday that he never came close to rejoining the Bulls before his career was done. The Bulls selected Rose with the number 1 pick in the 2008 draft, and he was named the 2008-2009 Rookie of the Year. He was a 3-time All-Star and the 2010-2011 MVP, becoming the youngest in league history at 22. However, Rose's career in Chicago was derailed by injuries, including a torn ACL and medial meniscus in his right knee twice. He finished his career with 12,573 points and 3,770 assists in 723 games. Despite the injuries, Rose said he doesn't consider what-ifs about his career. "The last time I had those conversations was years ago, and who knows," Rose said. "But at the same time, with me being obsessed with basketball, I wouldn't have found out who I was as a person. I was obsessed with the game. So if I would have won a championship, I would have won 4, and that would have pulled me away further and further away from finding self-knowledge, self-revelation, and identity. Everybody's story is different. For some reason, mine ended up being this way. Coming from Chicago, we rolled with the punches." End quote. Definitely big shout out to Derrick Rose, one of the most explosive, phenomenal, fun to watch basketball players I've ever seen, and more than likely of all time. Definitely had his career cut short due to some unfortunate injuries, but I remember those days watching Derrick Rose in his prime, and he was just different. Athletically, he was something that nobody could deal with. And as a point guard, very, very underrated passer of the ball. Definitely had a understanding of when to pass and when to get guys who are open a good shot. But also just extremely athletic, jumping out the gym, jumping over guys, dunking over guys, just incredible athlete, phenomenal athlete. Had a lot of success with those Bulls teams in the early years. For certain reasons I just mentioned, didn't quite work out, but definitely a player who was deserving of having their number retired and a Chicago legend for life. And it would be very interesting to see his son PJ one day potentially playing basketball for the Chicago Bulls and wearing that number 1 jersey. I think that would be something that a lot of people would love to watch. So shout out to Derrick Rose. Shout out to the whole Rose family, everybody involved. Shout out to the Chicago Bulls for doing the right thing. And with that being said, let's move on to our next topic of the day. All right, so final topic of today. We're going to be covering a little NFL playoff bracket breakdowns. We're going to be slightly going over pretty much all the teams who are going to be involved in the NFL playoffs at this point. But before I get into it, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and also don't be afraid to share this video with a friend or two who you feel may enjoy this content. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. The 2024 NFL playoffs are here, and the number 1 seeds in each conference, the Chiefs in the AFC and the Lions in the NFC, will receive first round byes. The remaining 12 teams will play in the next weekend's 3-day wild card round. The 2 games will be played Saturday, 3 are slated for Sunday, and the action will culminate in a Monday night contest that will be broadcasted by ESPN/ABC. Which teams are ready for deep playoff runs? Which ones have concerns that might impact their wild card weekend matchups? And which players could play big parts in their teams getting to the Super Bowl? Here's what each of the 14 playoff teams must do to reach the Super Bowl on February 9th at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. So we're going to start with the AFC here. Of course, we have the Kansas City Chiefs maintaining that 1 spot and a first round bye. I think they are heavily favored to win the whole thing, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion. They're coming off a recent loss to the Denver Broncos in which they played very few starters. Patrick Mahomes didn't play. Travis Kelce did not play. And a few other big key players of that team did not play. However, they were held to 0 points by the Denver Broncos, who, if they are able to get past the Buffalo Bills, will more than likely have to play the Kansas City Chiefs again in the playoffs. So that'll be interesting to see if that plays out more down the road. The Chiefs get the AFC's top seed for the 2nd time in 3 seasons and the 5th time since Patrick Mahomes became the starting quarterback. They will play in the divisional round against the lowest seeded wild card team remaining, the number 4 Texans, the number 5 Chargers, the number 6 Steelers, or the number 7 Broncos on either Saturday, January 18th, or Sunday, January 19th. The Chiefs have a combined 5-1 record against those teams, sweeping both games with the Chargers, beating both Houston and Pittsburgh in a stretch from December 21st to December 25th, and splitting 2 games with the Broncos. So I would say the only reason for concern with this team really is just pass protection. Although it has improved slightly. When you have a quarterback as good as Patrick Mahomes, you definitely want to make sure you protect him as much as possible, especially considering that Mahomes was sacked 36 times this season, the most he has ever taken. So you definitely got to get him protection. And working with the personnel they have now is going to be pretty tough. They have a right tackle in Jawan Taylor. He's the 3rd most penalized player in the league with 17 penalties. And those penalties have been something that the Chiefs have struggled to overcome this season. Although they only have 2 losses on their record for the regular season, we definitely have to look at this team and say that their pass protection and at times their penalties on the offensive line can definitely be a weakness. But really, outside of that, this team doesn't really have too many weaknesses. A few interesting stats about the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones recorded 62 pass rush wins this season, the most by a defensive tackle. That's actually the most by a lot. The Broncos' Zach Allen finished with 52, while the Seahawks' Leonard Williams finished third with 40. I bring this up because it has been quite a season for Jones on the sack front. But make no mistake, the Chiefs still have the game record. I bring this up because it has been a quiet season for Jones on the sack front, only having 5 recorded sacks on the season. But ultimately, I think that the Chiefs still have a game record at defensive tackle who could make a huge difference in the playoffs. So, moving on to the number 2, Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills will start their 6th straight postseason by hosting the number 7 seeded Broncos on Sunday. Buffalo did not play the Broncos this season with their last games against Denver, resulting in a 24-22 Monday night loss at home in Week 10 of the 2023 season. That game ended with the Broncos kicking a walk-off field goal after the Bills were penalized for 12 men on the field on a game-winning miss the previous play. Obviously, a bright spot for this team will be quarterback Josh Allen. Some people consider him to be the favorite to win the MVP race. Allen led the Bills' offense to 12 games scoring 30 points or more this season, and Buffalo has committed only 8 turnovers, tied with the 2019 Saints for the fewest in a season since 1933. A few reasons for concern with this team, if anything, would have to be their third down defense. The Bills' defense has been inconsistent this season and has allowed the 4th highest third down conversion percentage in the NFL at 43.8%. The Bills won't be able to primarily rely on forcing turnovers against the strong offenses they will face in the AFC playoffs, but they still must be able to get off the field on third down. It's very crucial that these NFL defenses stop teams on third downs, because if you allow an NFL offense to continuously get first down after first down after first down, third and long, third and short, first down, it really demoralizes and it tires out a defense. And eventually attrition will start to kick in a lot faster the more that defense stays on the field. So you definitely want to keep your defense fresh and get them off the field as quickly and as often as possible. So here's a few interesting stats. Josh Allen has the lowest sack rate, 2.6%, 4th lowest interception rate, 1.1%, and 5th lowest fumble rate, 0.8%, among QBR qualified quarterbacks. When we think of Allen, we often think of huge runs. He is second to Jaden Daniels among quarterback and EPA on design carries and scrambles, and his elite arm. But perhaps his best skill is avoiding mistakes and negative plays. It's a huge part of why he's exceptional and possibly the NFL MVP. Moving on to the number 3, Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens will play a rubber match against the AFC North rival Steelers in Baltimore on Saturday, 8 p.m. ET on Prime Video. They split their 2 regular season meetings as the Steelers won 18-16 in Pittsburgh in Week 11, and the Ravens won the rematch 34-17 in Baltimore in Week 16 to take the AFC North lead for good. So here's a few bright spots considering the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have been playing their best ball at the end of the season. They won their final 4 games, outscoring opponents 135-43 in a stretch that included victories over the playoff-bound Steelers and Texans. While quarterback Lamar Jackson and the NFL's number 1 offense get the headlines, Baltimore's defense has held teams to a league-low 15.4 points per game over the past 7 weeks. Our plan now is to peak at the right time, cornerback Marlon Humphrey said, and I feel like we're doing that, end quote. And I must admit, the way the Baltimore Ravens have been playing as of lately is absolutely phenomenal. If they continue playing like this on offense and defense, there's no limit to what team they could beat and where they could take this team. I mean, the offense is already dynamic with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the backfield. But then you look at how the defense has been playing. If they're able to hold teams to under 2 or 3 touchdowns a game, they could beat just about anybody in the league, in my opinion. So here's a little reason for concern. Jackson's surprisingly poor playoff track record. He is the only quarterback with multiple MVPs who hasn't captured a Super Bowl title. Jackson has a 2-4 postseason record, throwing 6 interceptions and losing 3 fumbles. In his 4 playoff losses, the Ravens have averaged only 10.5 points and haven't exceeded the 20-point mark. The story is still being written, Coach John Harbaugh said of Jackson, and there's a lot more to accomplish. So here's a few interesting stats. In weeks 1 through 10, the Ravens ranked 29th in EPA allowed per opponent dropbacks, but in weeks 11 through 18, they ranked first in the same category. Also, the Ravens have employed Kyle Hamilton as a safety on 69.3% of his snaps since week 11. Before that, he split time among safety, slot, corner, and linebacker, playing safety on only 26% of his snaps. That likely isn't the only factor, but the numbers say it matters. Baltimore has been better when Hamilton is aligned as safety than when he isn't. Definitely looking forward to seeing how this season pans out for the Baltimore Ravens. I think they're one of those teams that can surprise a lot of people. You know, people haven't really talked about the Baltimore Ravens as being a Super Bowl contender as much as other teams like Buffalo and Kansas City, but I think they have all the ingredients to make it happen, in my opinion. So, moving on to number 4, the Houston Texans. The Texans made the playoffs for the 2nd straight season and will host the number 5 seeded Chargers on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. on CBS. This is the 8th time since 2011 that the Texans have hosted a game on Wild Card Weekend. Houston is 5-2 in those games, most recently defeating the Browns 45-14 last season. I would say the strongest part about this Houston team would have to be their defense. Houston's defense has held opposing quarterbacks to a QBR of 54.7, the 7th lowest in the NFL. The Texans put relentless pressure on quarterbacks, leading to 49 sacks, tied for 4th in the league. Daniel Hunter is tied for 5th in the league with 12 sacks, and second-year edge rusher Will Anderson Jr. has 11. The unit also has Pro Bowl cornerback Derrick Stingley Jr. and rookie safety Kalen Bullock, who has each 5 interceptions, tied for 6th in the NFL. A little reason for concern with this team is their offensive consistency. The Texans' offense is 18th in scoring, so if the defense isn't locking opponents down, Houston could be in trouble. One look that has given quarterback C.J. Stroud issues is split safety coverage, as he has a 36 QBR against split safeties, which is 28th in the NFL. The offensive line hasn't exactly helped his quarterback, as Stroud has been pressured 35.8% of the time. This season, 4th highest in the NFL. The Chargers are in the playoffs for the 2nd time in the past 3 seasons and will play at Houston on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. The Chargers have never played the Texans in the playoffs and are making only their 4th playoff appearance since 2010. The Los Angeles last playoff game didn't go well, as it was squandered a 27-0 first half lead and lost 31-30 to the Jaguars on a walk-off field goal in the 2022 wild card round. One reason for hope is Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of this team. In Harbaugh's previous NFL coaching stint, the 49ers made 3 NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl in 4 seasons. By comparison, the Chargers have played in only 4 conference championships in franchise history, the most recent coming during the 2007 season, and 1 Super Bowl. Harbaugh's previous playoff success, plus the turnaround he has engineered in getting a team that was 5-12 in 2023 into the postseason, gives the LA Chargers hope. A reason for concern would definitely have to be the inconsistency of the offense. The offense has been the Chargers' Achilles heel all season, particularly in the second half of games. The Bolts have averaged 10.3 second half points, ranking 19th in the league. LA's league-leading scoring defense has helped mask the offense's second-half disappearing act, but a continuation could knock the Chargers out of the playoffs quickly. Here are some interesting stats about the Chargers. The Chargers rank in the top 6 in EPA allowed per design run play and per dropback. It's particularly impressive because they've done it without an amazing pass rush. They rank 22nd in pass rush win rate. LA's reasonably high 7.1% sack rate is probably more a function of an impressive secondary with Derwin James Jr., who has the lowest yards per coverage snapped allowed among players with 200 coverage snaps and primarily lines up as a slot corner. But outside corner Christian Fulton and rookies Terheeb Steele and Cam Hart have been solid too. Moving on to number 6, Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers will play the rival Ravens, facing number 3 seeded Baltimore on Saturday in the wild card round, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Prime. Pittsburgh is 3-1 against the Ravens in the playoffs, but lost the most recent meeting in the 2014 wild card round. The Steelers enter this matchup on a 5-game playoff losing streak, dating to a divisional round victory over the Chiefs in the 2016 playoffs. One bright spot for this team would be quarterback Russell Wilson, who despite a recent string of red zone turnovers, Wilson gives the offense the kind of juice it has consistently lacked since Ben Roethlisberger's 2019 elbow injury. In 11 starts, Wilson has completed 19 of 41 attempts, of more than 20 air yards for 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. A year ago, 3 Steelers quarterbacks combined to complete only 15 of 52 attempts on such passes for 4 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. A few reasons for concern would have to be the defensive lapses this team has from time to time. Missed assignments and communication shortcomings have contributed to the defense, typically one of the stingiest units in the league, giving up an average of 380.5 yards and 27 points during Pittsburgh's 4-game late-season slide. The Steelers are tied for the NFL lead with 33 takeaways, but they managed only 5 during their losing streak, after forcing 3 in each of the prior 4 contests. Interesting stats to know: with wide receiver George Pickens on the field, the Steelers averaged 0.07 EPA per dropback this season. Without him, the number dropped to minus 0.06. For context, the first number is roughly equivalent to the Rams' passing offense with Matthew Stafford. The latter is the Cowboys, who have started Cooper Rush in nearly half of their games. And moving on finally to number 7 in the AFC, we have the Denver Broncos. The Broncos' first playoff game since winning Super Bowl 50 will come on Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS, when they head to Buffalo to face the number 2 seeded Bills. The Broncos haven't played Buffalo in the playoffs since the 1991 season, when the Jim Kelly-led Bills defeated the John Elway-led Broncos 10-7. Denver has lost 4 straight road playoff games, dating to a victory at Pittsburgh in the 1997 AFC Championship game. The Denver defense definitely is a strong spot of this team, even with some recent bobbles. They gave up 27 points per game from Week 13 to 17 before shutting out the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. The Broncos are 3rd in the league in overall defensive efficiency, 1st in expected points added on defense, 1st in sacks, and 3rd in scoring defense. Denver has scored 5 touchdowns and 2 safeties on defense this season. Getting back cornerback Riley Moss, who missed Week 13 through 16 with a knee injury, to stabilize the corner position opposite Pro Bowler Patrick Surtain should help. A reason for concern would be 3 and outs. The Broncos offense has the 3rd highest percentage of drives that have ended in 3 and outs this season, a whopping 26.3%. The short possessions have resulted in lost momentum and an inability to prevent opponents from flipping field position. The Bo Nix-led offense has also put Denver's defense in compromising positions, forcing it to return to action quickly. Denver averages 29 minutes and 46 seconds in possession, which ranks 20th in the league. A few interesting stats: the Broncos play more man coverage than any other team at 56% and let Surtain, who has the lowest yards per coverage snap among outside corners per NFL Next Gen Stats, take away one side of the field. Surtain achieved his success through target deterrence. His 11% target rate is the third lowest among outside corners with at least 200 coverage snaps. And ball hawking for interceptions. The Broncos occasionally stick Surtain on the opponent's best receiver. In Week 17, Surtain lined up opposite of Jamar Chase 77% of the time. Surtain held the NFL's leading receiver to 27 yards as the primary defender. Now, moving on to the NFC, we have the Detroit Lions taking the 1 spot. The Lions are the NFC's number 1 seed for the first time in franchise history and will host the lowest seeded wild card winner, number 4 Rams, number 5 Vikings, number 6 Commanders, and number 7 Packers in the divisional round on January 18th or January 19th. Detroit hasn't played Washington yet, but is 5-0 against the other 3 opponents, sweeping 2 games against Minnesota and Green Bay, and beating the Rams in overtime in the season opener. The Detroit Lions offense definitely is a reason to expect them to win a lot of games in this postseason run. The Lions can overwhelm opposing defenses with a variety of options. Veteran quarterback Jared Goff has been on top of his game, earning starting quarterback honors for the upcoming Pro Bowl. Running backs David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, along with receivers Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameis Williams, made the Lions the first team in NFL history to have 2 running backs and 2 receivers who each topped 1,000 scrimmage yards in a season. Montgomery's status is up in the air after suffering a Week 15 knee injury. And speaking of injury, that is a reason for concern with this team, an injury-riddled defense. When healthy, the Lions have been dominant at times, but a slew of injuries to key players such as edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson, defensive tackle Aleem McNeil, and cornerback Carlton Davis III has taken a toll. Corner Terrion Arnold was also hurt in Week 18. The Lions compensated in the regular season, beating the 49ers 40-34 in Week 17. Despite giving up 475 yards, but they also gave up 559 yards to the Bills in a 48-42 loss in Week 15. Can they win shootouts against playoff caliber opponents? That is the question for this Detroit Lions team. At number 2, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles get a rematch of their season opener as they will host the number 7 seeded Packers in the wild card round on Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Philadelphia won the initial meeting 34-29 in Sao Paulo, Brazil, thanks to a 109 yards and 2 touchdowns from running back Saquon Barkley in his Eagles debut. The Eagles haven't won a playoff game since beating the 49ers in the NFC Championship game after the 2022 season. The Philadelphia Eagles have elite personnel. The Eagles boast arguably the best roster in football, which includes a top-tier offensive line, MVP contender, and 2,000-yard rusher Saquon Barkley, a dynamic wide receiver duo in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and a highly ranked defense. It's not only a talented group, but a physical one, giving it a real chance to plow its way to the Super Bowl. Small reason for concern with this team would have to be slow starts. The Eagles failed to score in the first quarter of their first 7 games and 10 times overall during the regular season. Philadelphia improved in that area down the stretch, but still ranked 21st in opening quarter points. Falling behind against good teams in the playoffs could prove costly. With number 3, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers made the playoffs for the 5th straight season and will start by hosting the number 6 seeded Commanders on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This is another rematch of a season opener as Tampa Bay cruised past Washington 37-20 at Raymond James Stadium. This is the 4th straight year the Bucs have hosted a wild card game as they beat the Eagles 32-9 in this spot last season. With a very versatile and high-power offense, the Bucs are averaging 28.6 offensive points, fourth most in the league, and third most in franchise history, trailing only the Tom Brady-led Super Bowl team in 2020, and another Brady-led team in 2021. Quarterback Baker Mayfield has 41 touchdown passes, tied for second in the NFL. Mayfield also has the third highest completion percentage at 71.4% and third most passing yards, 4,500. And Tampa Bay is averaging about 150 rushing yards, the fourth most in the league. A big reason for concern with this team would have to be their defense, which has struggled with health and consistency. It has rarely had a healthy squad this season, especially in the secondary. While the Buccaneers have given up only 17 points per game since their Week 11 bye, second best in the league, only one of those opponents had a winning record. Over the course of the season, Tampa Bay has allowed 249.3 passing yards per game, the fourth most in the league. A few interesting stats to know: the Buccaneers recorded more yards after carry over expectation than any other team this season per NFL Next Gen Stats. Coming in at number 4, we have the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams will make their second straight playoff appearance and sixth in Sean McVay's 8 seasons as head coach when they host the Vikings on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Los Angeles gave the Vikings one of their 3 losses this season, defeating Minnesota 30-20 in Week 7 at SoFi Stadium. A big bright spot for this team would have to be their drastic defensive improvement. The Rams defense gave up 2 touchdowns in Week 15 through 17 as it made a playoff push after a 1-4 start. After allowing an average of 23.6 points in its first 13 games, Los Angeles allowed 24 total in the 3 games prior to clinching the NFC West. A big reason for improvement is the play of its defensive front, including first-round pick Jared Verse, who is named to the Pro Bowl as the Rams' lone representative. Small reason for concern with this team would have to be an extremely inconsistent offense. After scoring 44 points against the Bills in Week 14, the Rams' offense scored that combined total in Week 15 through 17. The Los Angeles Rams has especially struggled in the first quarter this season, failing to score a touchdown in 13 of its 16 games in which quarterback Matthew Stafford and the starting offense played. The Rams have averaged 21.6 points per game this season, good for only 20th in the NFL. At number 5, we have the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings will play at the Rams in the wildcard game round on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. After falling to the Lions on Sunday night, the only non-Detroit loss the Vikings have suffered this season came at SoFi Stadium as the Rams defeated Minnesota 30-20 in Week 7. These teams haven't played each other in the postseason since 1999 in the divisional round, when the St. Louis Rams outscored the Vikings 49-37 on their way to a Super Bowl crown. A bright spot for this team would have to be the balance this team provides. The Vikings can win in a variety of ways, as their offense and defense each rank among the NFL's top 10 in scoring. That increase the number of ways they can earn a playoff win. It could come via passing, a big passing day from quarterbacks Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison. Or the defense could carry the team with a series of well-timed takeaways. After tying for first in the league with 33, in other words, it would take an all-22 effort from an opponent to knock Minnesota from the postseason. Reason for concern with this team: the Vikings are 9-1 in one-score games for several reasons, including well-timed field goals from Will Richard and John Parker Romo, who served as a 4-game injury replacement. Richard opened the season by converting his first 14 field goal attempts before suffering a quadriceps injury. Since then, Richard has made 10 of 16 kicks. The Vikings still have full confidence in Richard and don't believe that he is having any lingering effects from his injury. But taking a rookie kicker into the playoffs can be nerve-wracking, especially when he enters the postseason in a bit of a slump. At number 6, we have the Washington Commanders. The Commanders returned to the playoffs for the first time since 2020, when they play at the number 3 seeded Buccaneers on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tampa Bay was also Washington's opponent the last time the franchise made the postseason, as the Tom Brady-led Buccaneers defeated the then Washington football team in the wildcard round en route to a Super Bowl title. Washington is 1-2 against the Buccaneers in the playoffs. A bright spot for this team would have to be the play of quarterback Jaden Daniels. He won't win the MVP, but few players have been more valuable to their team. Daniels has thrown for 3,568 yards and 25 touchdowns, and rushed for 864 yards and 6 more scores. He has a knack for big plays at the right time and has led 4 game-winning drives, with 3 touchdown passes coming on the final play from scrimmage. Daniels ranks second in the NFL with 12 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter and overtime. Reason for concern with this team would have to be the run defense. Washington has the lowest ranked run defense of any playoff team, and only 2 teams, playoff or otherwise, were worse this season. Only 2 allowed more yards per carry than the Commanders. Washington has fared better of late, holding Saquon Barkley and Bijan Robinson to a combined 20 carries and 35 yards in the second half during weeks 16 and 17. But if a team with a top quarterback is also able to run on the Commanders, it will be tough for Washington to advance. Interesting stat to note, quarterback Jaden Daniels recorded 59 totaled EPA on design runs and scrambles. That's more than any other player this season, and shows just how important Daniels' rushing production has been to the Commanders. And last but not least, we have the Green Bay Packers coming in at number 7 in the NFC. The Packers get a chance to settle the score from their Brazilian season opener, as they will head to Philadelphia to play the Eagles on Sunday. The Packers were in a similar position last season as they upset the NFC East champion Cowboys as the number 7 seed in the wild card round. Green Bay also won its last playoff meeting between the teams, winning in Philadelphia in the 2010 wild card en route to a Super Bowl title. The Packers do 2 things extremely well: run the ball and force turnovers. The Packers are ranked top 5 in both categories, rushing yards per game and total takeaways. They have relied heavily on Pro Bowl running back Josh Jacobs to carry the load, 1,329 rushing yards, and have one of the NFL's interception leaders in safety Xavier McKinney. That's a good combination for playoff success. The one downside of this team I must note is the Packers haven't beaten any of the NFC playoff teams. They're a combined 0-5 against the Eagles, Lions, and Vikings. Their best win came at the NFC West champion Rams, but that was back in Week 5 when the Rams were riddled with injuries, especially on offense. Some interesting stats to note are Jordan Love ranks 5th in QBR with a 68.7 rating. It has been quite a climb for Love's efficiency on a Packers team that has leaned on the ground game this season. But after beginning the season with 6 consecutive games with at least 1 interception, Love hasn't thrown 1 in the past 7. Since Week 12, Love has had the highest QBR in the NFL. It's similar to last season when Love also had the highest QBR in the league from Week 12 and on. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. We just broke down the NFL playoffs for y'all. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share the video with a friend who would enjoy this breakdown. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the Good Game podcast. My name is A1K, and with that being said, we're out.